Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Fangirls Only. This week our special guest is Kyle Gordon.
All
Hi,
right. Hello.
Hi.
how
Hey,
are
how's
you?
it going?
We're
Pretty
doing
good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
yeah.
Great.
Okay, so before we start, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. what would you like to know? I could start in a lot of different places.
Just
Um,
like a brief just like about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so a little about me. I'm from a little outside of New York City originally. I'm from Westchester. And then recent relevant history, I after I graduated, I moved to New York City and I've been there ever since. And I pretty much moved to do comedy. So originally, when I moved to New York, I was doing a lot of improv. But then I sort of transitioned more into like solo performance character stuff, which is sort of the like, um, the beginning stages of stuff that you might have seen online, TikTok or Instagram. So that's where I kind of started doing that because I wanted, when you're doing improv, it's really fun and I learned a lot doing it, but um, it's all collaborative, it's all with a group, and I'm very selfish. So I wanted to have something I could perform by myself. But I was not a stand-up. I was never a stand-up. So I kind of concocted my own weird solo thing I could do on stand-up shows. And that kind of became like really character based and musical, very musical. So I'd perform a lot of like songs in character. So I'd do like a pop punk angsty teen guy, or I'd do like a Brazilian kind of like jazzy, weird, creepy guy. And so those were all, and a lot of those I've ended up, posting versions of them. But that's kind of, mostly I was focused on doing like live performance. And then the pandemic happened, and that's when I got on, I just couldn't perform live anymore. And I was very bored and anxious. So I kind of put all that energy into, creating, and doing stuff online. And so that's where you guys probably saw and found me, is a product of that process. So pretty much I've been posting and, doing that stuff pretty regular, almost every day since the end of November 2020.
Okay, nice.
So we'll just start off with questions now. So the first question is, who's your biggest inspiration for comedy?
My biggest inspiration, so probably all told, is Chris Farley. If you remember, he was on Saturday Night Live in the 90s. And he was, I mean, I still think he's the funniest, like, natural performer I've ever seen. And, I used to love him as a kid. You guys might be a little young, but he died in 1997. So we really didn't get enough stuff, enough from him. But I mean, what he created while he was around was really amazing. And he was just this giant, over the top, crazy energy, really like in your face. You can't, he's on screen, you can't take your eyes off of him. So and I used to like do impressions of him when I was like a little kid. So yeah, that's definitely probably my number one inspiration, going back all the way to when I was a kid.
Okay, next question is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue the same career as you?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I would just say, well, first, if you really, I mean, my career, I'd say, is comedy, and the ways to, the outlets for comedy have both expanded, a lot in my lifetime, but that also means, you know, uh, the paths to success have kind of changed. So, one, I would say, if you really want to pursue comedy as a career, I would think really long and hard about that choice in and of itself. It's really tough. There's a lot of people doing it. And, and you can always just, what I always said is like, if I didn't make it as a comedian and, I would always be doing it just because I love doing it. And I think you should always, no matter what, if you have a day job or how much time you can devote to it, if you really love doing something, even if you can't make a full career out of it, don't get discouraged. And I think it's still worth doing. But if you are at the point where you're like, I really, 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 really want to be a comedian, I would just say, first, just create stuff constantly. And I think the big thing is like get on stage constantly. Fail a lot. You'll probably hear that from anyone who's trying to be successful at anything, but it's like, I'm very much of the mind that you learn the most by just trying something out and seeing what works, as opposed to, like I need to take 1 million classes or I need to get, because me, even as someone who's been doing it a while, not nearly as long as many other people, but, there's only so much I could tell you. The best advice is like, go out and you have to like learn and experience it for yourself. And you get those 10,000 hours and it becomes like a second sense, second nature, like what works and what doesn't work. And so my biggest thing is just perform constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
So since you started the Kid the Snow Fun series, which one has been your favorite to film?
Ooh, that's a good question. Of those, which is my favorite? Do you mind if I look real quick? I don't know if you guys like put this live, so maybe I'll keep talking while I'm like looking to see which ones I like. Yeah, these have been, these have been really fun to do because that, as I was saying, like I was a comedian in New York for a long time, but this is something I wrote, during the pandemic. So, and probably my first like big one, or one of the first big ones that like I had written entirely during the pandemic. I had never really performed it live. I'm only just now kind of starting to perform it live. I would say, actually, you know what? Probably my favorite one that I did. It's one of the early ones. I guess I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 6th one I did. It's when he goes skiing. Like No Fun Kid Goes Skiing, and that was a really fun one because then that was when I kind of knew that it had legs and it was getting really, really popular. And I was like, if I could do that, I just knew at that point, I knew the kid so well. I was like, I can just do this. I could do so many versions of this kid. Like, I just know him really, really well, the character. And it was just really fun to do and shoot. So that's probably my favorite one.
Okay, next question is, if you could describe your TikTok account in 3 words, what would they be?
Ooh, 3 words. I would say, funny, character based. We'll put a dash there, so that's becomes 1 word. And I would say diverse, and by that I mean like each one of my characters and bits, I try to do stuff that is really different from like each thing I do I try to do a lot of different characters, and I get bored if I keep doing the same thing over and over again, so I like to do a lot of different things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's the hardest part about being a comedian?
Ooh, the hardest part about being a comedian, I think I would say it's a bit of the uncertainty, because unlike other professions or art forms, I think comedy more so than anything else, it's you don't know if something is good until you really put it up in front of an audience. On TikTok, you kind of get the validation in terms of like likes and comments, but I'd say even more so with live comedy, it's a similar animal. It's like, you don't know if something works until you really put it up and you hear people laughing at it. It's like, I feel like more so with like a song, right? you can kind of, I think there are a lot of great artists who write their best work alone in their room, and then they put it out and, people love it. Like, I think, at least for me, I don't know if something's good until I get the validation from the audience. And that's kind of the thing with comedy. And that's really hard, because something you think might be great or something you think might work, you put it up and then you're, disappointed. But then the other side is true. You take a chance on something, and some of your best stuff ends up being stuff you might have thought we were going to throw away, or you didn't, you didn't have that much hope in. So it's kind of fun in that way.
Right. Okay. Next question is, what's the best thing you've learned throughout the whole process of becoming a comedian and a content creator?
Sorry, can you say that again?
What is the best thing you've learned throughout the whole process of becoming a comedian and content creator?
The best thing I've learned. I think the best thing for me about like this whole process is I've found there's a newfound confidence I have in my own ideas. Because I think a lot of this, for a few reasons. One, with TikTok and creating content online, I felt, because things started to get popular, I had more confidence in myself to take more risks, to try things that I wouldn't have otherwise tried if I was just doing it live. So I've been really grateful for that. And as a result, it's become like, this period has been probably the most prolific period, like writing and creative period of my life. I've just been making so much stuff, and I'm really, really happy and grateful for that. And I think I've become better as a result of that. Yeah, so I think that that's pretty much my favorite part of this whole process.
Has comedy always been a dream of yours?
Yes, whether I knew it or not. I am kind of like a stereotypical case. I was always like class clown, every classroom, I kind of just turned it into a stage for me. And so I guess if I was anything, I was always just funny. So I think I didn't fully realize, it doesn't sink in that you can actually become a comedian like you see on TV or, like you see online. That didn't really sink in until like college, but I think like deep down, I always, it's always what I've been best at. It's always what I love doing. So I think it was I don't think it was really a surprise to anyone who really knew me.
Okay. The next question is, does making content ever stress you out?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I see a lot of other like content creators online complain about this a lot of times, because, one of the things with creating content is if you want to be successful, I think the number one thing is just create tons and tons and tons of content. And so I set this goal for myself. Actually, to bring it back a little bit, the way it really got started was, I was home for Thanksgiving. I was feeling, lazy and fat and drinking too much. And I was like, I needed that creative outlet, and I needed to, motivate myself. So I set this goal to create one TikTok every day for 3 months. And that was back in November. And so I've pretty much kept up with that ever since, more or less, so with that schedule, which is arbitrary, that's what I set for myself. But with that schedule, it could be a bit overwhelming. And definitely I go through periods where, I doubt myself, and I'm like, oh, this week was not nearly as good as last week. Am I losing it? Am I out of ideas? I think every creative person goes through phases like that. But on the other hand, if you can take a step back and look at it, kind of objectively, everyone goes through those periods of like creative drought, whether it's just you're tired, whether there's other things going on in your life, whether you get a little complacent. There are a lot of reasons why it can happen. But if you take a step back and just know that those periods will happen, and you just say, I got to keep grinding it out, and new ideas will come, then it makes it a lot easier. And not to mention, like, I think the fact that I've put this pressure on myself to create and post something new every day, the good far outweighs the bad, because again, as I said, I've created more content and written more in this time than I ever have in my life. And I also that pressure to create something new every day, I don't have time to second guess myself. So if I create something or post something and it doesn't do as well, or I'm not as happy with it, or I wish I could go back and change XYZ, I don't really have time to like dwell on that, because I got to make something new tomorrow. So that's really, really helpful to kind of prevent myself from spiraling into self-doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What type of comedy do you do?
Yeah, I would say I really try to like create my own voice. So I wouldn't call myself a stand-up. I wouldn't call myself like I act per se, but I wouldn't call myself like an actor. I would say, if I describe it, it's like I do like comedic characters, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much how I describe it.
Okay, next question is, what do you consider to be your most rewarding accomplishments you've had so far?
My most rewarding accomplishment. I think just like building an audience, like having, and it sounds like corny, like I have all these followers or whatever, but like really, I think my biggest accomplishment is just like finding a community that like really likes, a big community that really likes my stuff. And because what I post is really just what I think is good and funny. And again, I've had many years of like developing my voice and style, so it didn't come out of nowhere. But like as you may have noticed, like I don't really do TikTok trends. I don't use like trending sounds. People don't really like stitch or duet my content that much. Like my audience, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but they pretty much just like me for me, like for my style. So to build such a big audience without compromising my own style or integrity, I think that's my biggest accomplishment.
If you could go back to any time in your career, what time would you want to go back to, and why?
Well, I really, not to dodge the question, but I really wouldn't, because because my career is just really starting. Before the pandemic, I was just doing shows in bar basements for 10 people, and it was fine. That's part of the journey. Every performer will tell you that, but and I'm very grateful for that time. But where I'm at right now is awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for coming on. It's great having you.
It was nice to see you too.
Yeah, thanks so much. For having me. I hope you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye. Fangirls out.